Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I am Zoe Dean Smith. I'm the Vice President of Economic Empowerment and Entrepreneurship at Vital Voices Global Partnership, and I'm based in Washington, D.C., and very, very excited about this session this morning, where we're going to be speaking with Mavis Ndutwa from Kalahari Honey in Botswana, Ghislaine Tessa Ketcher of Millennium Immobilier in Cameroon, and Atiwoku of Seeds of Africa from Ethiopia. The We Empower UN SDG Challenge is co-led by Vital Voices Global Partnership and the Julie Ann Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory at Arizona State University. And it's made possible thanks to the contribution of our lead partners, including Diane von Furstenberg, Mary Kay, P&G, Bank of Montreal, Salesforce, Hawaii Tropical Garden, and Grow Your Biz. So I'd like to start by asking each of our fabulous speakers to tell us a little bit about their business. And I'm going to invite Mavis. Please go ahead and tell us a little bit about Kalahari Honey.
Thank you, Zoe, and thank you for having us. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mavis Ndutwa. I am the founder and CEO of Kalahari Honey. Kalahari Honey is a honey aggregator from Botswana that uses beekeeping as a tool to mitigate human and wildlife conflict, as well as transform communities using agriculture. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mavis, can you tell us just a little bit about how Kalahari Honey works? Tell us about the elements.
Yes, basically what Kalahari Honey does is, because Botswana has the largest elephant population in the world, Kalahari Honey has found a solution in bees that keeps elephants away from the farms. By so doing, we use beehives as living fences around the farms to keep the elephants away, and that enables women to then be able to grow their crops and harvest.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Ati, can you share a little bit about the work that you're doing with Seeds of Africa in Ethiopia?
Yes, thank you. I'm Atiwoku. I'm the founder and CEO of Seeds of Africa. We're an education and economic development NGO operating in Ethiopia for the last over 10 years. We mainly work in educating the next generation of Ethiopian leaders, which comes in the form of a K through 8th grade school currently. And we work with women in providing access to training and microloans for marginalized women who are excluded from the formal economy.
Great, thank you very much. Ghislaine, can you share a little bit about your work as well, please? I know that Ghislaine's been having a little bit of technical challenges. Ghislaine, are you there? Oh dear. Okay. We'll come back to her in a minute. I'm going to come back to you, Mavis. Can you talk a little bit about the SDGs and how you're addressing them in your business? The Sustainable Development Goals.
Thank you for your question. The SDGs are a very vital part of our, of our work as Kalahari Honey. Of course, we touch many other SDGs, but today I'm just going to talk about the two main ones. Being food security. I believe that is very, very important to transform, but also to make sure that communities are fed. There's adequate food security in the country, and especially with the smallholder farmers, particularly that happen to be a lot of women, to make sure that they have access to food, and also the issue of we as Kalahari Honey are addressing the issue of increased food production, because Botswana as a country is a desert. And therefore, we are also continuously working on ways to make sure that communities have access to information on climate change, crop diseases, financial literacy for women as well, So, and there's also the SDG on gender equality, which is one of the SDGs that we highly touch on. You know, especially for women and girls, because most communities traditionally women farm, and therefore there is gender inequality. You know, women are not exposed to economic resources, you know, such as access to finance, you know, access to land, and in general, just to end all form of discrimination against women. You know, that's what we stand for as Sub-Saharan.
Thank you. Thank you. I see Stella has joined us. Stella, good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to the session. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business?
Sure. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. My name is Stella Sigana. I'm from Kenya. And my company is called Alternative Waste Technologies. And our mission is basically to provide clean cooking fuel, targeting mainly communities at the bottom of the pyramid. And our interest has been mainly on production of charcoal briquettes. This is because, as we know, Sub-Saharan Africa is predominantly dependent on biofuel as a source of cooking energy, mainly for communities at the bottom of the pyramid. So with this, we are trying to see how we can harness organic waste from the farms, such as agricultural waste, which is normally burnt to clear the farms for the next farming season. So if the same agricultural waste can be used to produce charcoal briquettes through the briquetting technology, and then we supply it to in households in informal settlements where they buy it at a price that is considerably fairer than the traditional charcoal, which is obtained from trees. And then from there, we sell it to the communities. And the method or system of selling that we use, we call it a pathway to ownership business model, whereby besides just selling the charcoal briquettes in the informal settlements, we are also targeting to see if we can be able to create an employment system for communities at the bottom of the pyramid, whereby we recruit them as sales agents to sell the charcoal briquettes. So we're trying to see that you're able to address the three-legged system of a social business, whereby we are supporting environmentally, we are creating jobs socially, as well as putting money into people's pockets and as well as to the company. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm going to come to Ati now. Ati, can you talk a little bit about how your business is addressing the SDGs and why that is so important?
Sure. You know, the SDGs, I believe, are really important to unite all of us into a common mission, which really, at the end of the day, comes to human dignity. So the work we do mainly focuses on fighting poverty. We really believe in the fact that we need to live in a world free of poverty, although that might sound like a dreamy thing to say. We really believe that is the way the world needs to be, and we want to see a more equitable world. So, but for us, when we look at how do we fight poverty and how do we lift people out of poverty, other SDGs come into place, like gender equality, which we work in through our economic empowerment program with women, because we believe women are the core of a community, and if we uplift women, then communities have a much better chance of fighting poverty. We also work on quality education, because another area we see has an incredible impact in fighting poverty is providing quality education, especially for marginalized populations. And as we work with some of the poorest people in Ethiopia, we believe that when you work in the intersection of quality education and gender equality, then you have a much better chance of actually achieving the no poverty SDG.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we know all about that. Can you talk a little bit very quickly about, is it specific parts of Ethiopia that you're working in?
Yes, we're currently in the Oromia region, which is one of the largest regions in Ethiopia by population. People in that region are about 40% of our population. We are in a city called Adama, We really believe in impact in the depth of the work you're doing and not necessarily only in the number of people you touch, because we really, so the community we work with in Adama is a community where the families we work with are living at or under the poverty line. And once a family is registered to work with SEEDS, that includes both providing quality education for the children as well as providing economic opportunities for the mothers. Did Zoe drop off?
I think she did, but perhaps I can go on about our impact, in our communities, because I'm picking on a lot of similarities. We work mainly with, currently we have a network of around 500 women farmers that we work with. And how we've been able to measure impact has been, the number of lives transformed, such as, the women that have been able to send their kids to school, and also there's a linkage somehow with, there's a number of gender-based violence cases. And it has transformed that when women are empowered, they are actually able to make decisions by themselves. They don't have to stay in abusive relationship just because they don't have any form of income. And those are some of the indicators that we've been looking at. And also, most importantly, we are a desert, so we've also been, measuring as to, people shouldn't really cut trees, and also trying to introduce bees into the ecosystem so that, we can get more plants, coming off. And of course, the human and wildlife conflict itself, the number of people that harvest their crops, so those for us have been really good measures.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't know what happened. I think we've got some gremlins in our system today. Thank you very much, Mavis, for that. What I'd like to ask each of you now is that a lot of you are creating really creative solutions to the SDGs. What innovations are you seeing right now in each of your sectors? And I'd like to start with Stella.
I'm glad that there's a lot of innovation that is coming in the clean energy and in the cooking space, especially if we look at the adoption of solar cooking systems. There's bioethanol for cooking. So there's a lot of innovations coming in. So the challenge, what I've seen mainly has been in terms of creating awareness to communities and who can be able to access this, and also the system of distribution, because the challenge is once they accept to use the product, then how do they continuously, how are they able to continuously access the same product to keep their cooking systems? Because one of the questions that we have received, a very predominant question from communities, is how sure are we that you will always be there in the community to be able to meet our needs when we need them, in light of that's in light of cooking. And therefore, when we were developing our innovation in terms of the briquetting technology and looking at what methods you can use to produce the briquette, we are trying to see if we can create an efficient distribution system, which I think is where the challenge is, to make sure that just as much as the traditional charcoal from the trees is available, then we are also equally available to the communities right outside their doorsteps. And I think that is one of the things we're trying to work hard on. And if other people who are bringing in innovations in light of cooking can be able to improve on the distribution system, I think it will be a quicker way of improving the access to clean cooking energy for people to be able to cook. I think that's where the challenge to solving the innovation is.
And how are you addressing those distribution challenges?
So one, we are manufacturers. We do manufacture the charcoal briquettes, so therefore we are able to control the availability of the briquettes to the communities right where they need them. And then secondly, by recruiting the sales agents from who live within the community itself, they're able to pass word within the different households. Because one of the things that has worked for us when you're selling in informal settlements, due to the close nature of the dense population that is living within the community, they're mainly dependent on word of mouth and referrals, because the communities are extremely close to each other. And therefore, by recruiting sales agents who live within the communities themselves, they're able to quickly tell each other of what are you using to cook, how efficient is it, how much are you spending on it. Therefore, and this has helped us in the selling of the charcoal briquettes within the informal settlements. Though for communities outside the informal settlements, then we are using different methods to be able to reach them, which is capitalizing on technology to be able to reach communities outside informal settlements.
Okay, and what kind of technology is that? Is it phone technology?
Yes, we are doing a combination of phone technology using the USSD method of text messaging to be able to make sure they get the information quickly. And then we are also employing the customer relationship management systems to be able to sell to communities that is outside the informal settlements. But within the informal settlement is usually through text messaging as reminders to our clients, as well as the word of mouth to be able to reach the clients. But for outside the informal settlement, it's mainly using the CRM method and continuously reminding them to use charcoal briquettes and not the normal briquettes for the sake of conserving the environment.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Stella. Ati, innovative solutions that you're seeing right now, can you share some of those with us?
Sure. I think in the space we work in, which is education, the first one, and then economic development, a lot of the innovation I'm seeing right now is really around the pandemic and how there had to be adaptation. So on the education side, especially when you're working with communities that don't have access to internet or don't have computers, sometimes even television, then there is a lot of innovation that needs to be done around how do you do virtual education, which the entire world has tried to find ways to adopt. So in Ethiopia, I've seen a lot of very creative ways schools have tried to adopt to making sure that children are still getting some education, but also just support. And in our case, what we did was we created a platform, a combination of printout materials that can be picked up at no contact and weekly phone calls to children at home from teachers to providing a list of the TV and radio schedules of government education programs available based on age group to really mitigate the challenges that are created by the fact that we work with a population that doesn't have access to internet predominantly, or will have a cell phone, but there will be one cell phone in the household. Or, when we think of virtual education, we have to also remember living conditions where families are living in a home with multiple people where there's not enough room for somebody to actually sit and attend a class or do a Zoom call or any of those kind of things that the rest of us are very privileged to be able to do. So I've seen a lot of that creativity in the education space, but in business, especially in micro businesses run by women in communities in Ethiopia, another thing I've seen is constant innovation around personal protection. As we continue to learn more about the disease and lockdowns were not as restrictive, and families had to get out to work because they can't really afford to stay home or have government resources that allow them to do so. We've seen a lot of innovation around hand washing stations, masks, dining situations in small restaurants that serve, for example, that serve construction workers and things of that sort that don't have the budget or resources to do the changes that larger institutions are able to. So I think in this moment, I've really seen how innovation in places where there's a lot of stress and challenge have been, for me, the most impressive and uplifting, to be honest, that humans are really resilient and mothers continue to find a way to provide and to take care of their children or to take care of their communities.
Thank you. And so, Ati, I want to actually dig a little bit deeper into that. In terms of innovation, do you have any particular really big idea of how you can reach more people with your work right now?
Yes.
Like if you have a magic fairy, like what would that look like?
So we've been looking at this actually, because as we look at where the world is right now, economies have shrunk in countries and then we can see the impact that is having in people and especially on mothers. So what we're looking at right now is for our economic development program, which really goes into providing training and entrepreneurship dollars that can be used to start or expand a business. The innovation we're working on right now is to really expand that in reaching thousands of women. But it's I don't want to say post-COVID, but in this economy where there's a lot of challenges that families are facing. So we were looking at how do we do trainings that will provide a path to employment, especially in Ethiopia, where there are a lot of new industrial zones that are coming up, but there's a skill gap. So we're looking at how can we meet that skill gap so that women have access to those jobs, and then into the entrepreneurship side, which we've been working on, but in a larger scale where women can get trained and have the opportunity to start or expand their businesses. But doing that in a way where we can impact a few. We've been working with about 300 women. We want to go up to about 5,000 women in the next few years. And we think that those opportunities will create economic stability, which is really important right now. And there's also, in Ethiopia, mobile money is relatively new. And one of the areas that we're trying to innovate is to, one, bring in women into the formal banking system, because most women in the informal economy are not a part of the system, which means they don't really get any access to loans or capital. So we're really working on bringing women into the formal economy.
Great. Thank you very much. I've just seen a question from Alison. So Alison, I will come back to that question later. But I'd like to go to Mavis now to ask, Mavis, can you talk a little bit about the innovative solutions that you're seeing at the moment?
Thank you, Zoe. Talking about innovative solutions, perhaps let me start saying, for us as Kalahari Honey, when we initially started, we had what we call indigenous knowledge. We came in with the indigenous knowledge of, okay, elephants are afraid of bees. And for sure, if you look now, compared to 5 years ago, we have changed a lot. Due to the fact that there has been a number of innovative solutions that have come on board, such as partnerships with universities, bringing in tech solutions for starters, to do further research on the bee, as well in the solutions that can actually help the farmers deal with issues of climate change, as well as, be able to predict, and can get to use the right kind of seeds when growing your crops. It's beyond honey. And there's also been the financial solutions that in a form of, giving access to women in, financial access to women in real time, as well and as, exposing them to markets, because one of the biggest challenges that we have, in the Sub-Saharan side is access to markets. We all know that women day in, day out, they go out to work or they go out to, to farm as smallholder farmers, and they go to markets. But these women, majority of them, they do not bank their money. They don't have any access to, digital money. So we've come up and said, let us introduce you and let us make sure that you have access, you can get access to finance in real time, you can get to bank your money. And we can, give you access to markets because, as I mentioned, one of the biggest challenges has been, the access to markets, and therefore, digital markets have been a solution for us. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask Stella this same question, and then I see we've got a couple more questions coming up in the Q&A. So Stella, in terms of the innovative solutions, what are you seeing?
I think just to echo what Nducho has just talked about in terms of the payment system, cashless payment systems, I think one of the privileges we have as a country is the fact that we have the mobile money payment platform through the M-Pesa technology, which is it's definitely an accepted mode of payment within the country. And therefore, a lot of this a lot of businesses are being advised to go into the mobile payment systems to be able to avoid a lot of cash handling. And with this, you find most of the communities of the informal settlement, because of the nature of the kind of jobs that they get, being wage-based, they are predominantly a wage-based community. The money that they get, they don't see it being enough to be banked through a mobile money payment technology system. And therefore, we are trying to encourage them to get into the habit of payment systems using mobile money, and which is important because also access to finance, just as has been talked before, it makes it easy to access finance because now you have a credit history that can allow you to access money in whichever way from different platforms. And therefore, one of the major innovations that we're having within the country for mobile money is where companies or small businesses have a payment number, a mobile payment number, which is at zero cost to the person who's paying the money. And therefore, this is definitely encouraging them to get into the habit of paying more using the mobile money system, and the cost is transferred to the owner of the business in terms of being able to access, then you pay the money to be able to access that money. And therefore, if it's at zero cost to the buyer, then it encourages that habit. And it is one of the habits that we're also trying to inculcate within the people who are buying our products in the informal settlements, that is the charcoal briquettes. I think that one has been a major innovation around the payment systems. And then I think probably the other one is trying to embrace the online digital marketing systems. It's not very big in informal settlements because, of course, as I said earlier, it's predominantly a word-of-mouth market. But for communities outside the informal settlements, the middle-class markets, the upper-class markets, then that is a definitely accepted method of transacting and also buying your products. And I would say that is one of the methods that, given also the circumstances you're in right now, everyone has basically transitioned into online marketing and online purchase of products. So I think those are some of the major innovations that we have seen around supporting technology using the payment systems as well as the marketing systems.
Great. Thank you so much, Stella. So I'd like to share a question that has been posed by Alison Rippon Armstrong, and it's for Mavis and Attie on how are you measuring impacts? So I'd like to start with you, Attie, and then go to Mavis, and then we'll see if we can get Ghislaine back online. So over to you. How are you making impacts?
Thank you, Zoe. Yeah. So for us, the impact in the two programs are slightly different, but in our education program, we look at dropout rates. So low dropout rates are very important, but also literacy and numeracy rates. In Ethiopia, we have a very crowded education system in the public education system, which is where most children go to, and that ends up creating usually a high dropout rate. That coupled with a lot of other issues of poverty, as well as the literacy and numeracy rate levels being very low. So that's the way we measure our education program. For our economic development program, we really look at household income and quality of life and improvement over time. So usually within about a year after a woman has taken a microloan, we see an increase in household income by about 50% on average. And for a family that's living under the poverty line, which we're looking at around under $2 a day, a 50% increase has a significant impact in the quality of life of a home. And when you see that over time, then we see families being able to afford to build an extra bedroom for their children, or a mother now can afford to buy a bed for each of her children so they don't have to be crammed into one bed together. These are like more personal ones, but at a bigger scale really is the income and quality of life.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Ati. I'm actually going to jump right now. Mavis, I'll come back to you in a second, but I'd love to give Ghislaine the opportunity to introduce herself. I know you've been having such big technical issues connecting from Cameroon. So please tell us a little bit about your business and how you're addressing the SDGs.
Hi everyone, I'm Ghislaine from Cameroon.
Can you speak a little bit louder?
I'm Ghislaine Sakecha from Cameroon. I'm the founder and CEO of Millennium Immobilier, which is a real estate, integrated real estate service and service company. We're specializing in green buildings and sustainable materials production, like alternative materials like earth blocks. For the moment, we developed an affordable program of housing, green housing, which we developed with I would say alternative method of payment. We try to allow people, low-income people, to be able to afford for their houses, because for the moment people focus on the shortage of decent houses in Africa, but no one mentioned that these houses, if they're not well built, like according to the climate change consequences, people will not be able to live in those houses in the future, because housing in general accounts for 40% of the climate issues that we are now facing. So we developed this program of little houses that cost from $10,000 to 30 or 40,000 US dollars. And the innovation is not in the materials themselves; it lies in the business model we've adopted. We try to enable people to build a house on their own and to pay incrementally. So it allows small for low-income people to be able to afford this type of houses. I don't know if I express myself well. I'm French-speaking, so I'm very sorry for my English. So it's
that's great. That's wonderful. And while we still have you, can you talk a little bit about some of the innovations? What are some of the innovative solutions that you're seeing in your sector at the moment?
It's very difficult to innovate in creating new type of building materials, because construction sector and it's very, there is nothing you can change dramatically. But we saw that we could not use the same type of materials and building systems that have been used to build all over the rest of the world, because first of all, Africa doesn't produce a lot of materials. So it would be very expensive if we wanted to try to use the same technologies and the same processes that were used abroad. So we tried to come up with something that would be very local. That's why we used earth blocks, and we used insulation and very traditional method of designing houses, so that they could allow to refresh houses without using a lot of outside devices like AC. The innovation lies there, because if you want to use the same method, like in Western countries, you have mortgage. It's very rare in Africa. So if you count on mortgage system, on traditional materials, and on the same processes for people to be able to live in their houses, incomes are so low that you would not be able to do so. So we try to design a kind of, it's a kind of IKEA homes. It's very standard home that people can choose and we help them to design according to their own budget. So if they can afford, like, say, $20,000, they will choose among the models we have. They will choose the finishes that we offer and that are very local. So they can choose their budget, and then they can choose the pace of building the house, because we give tutorials, we give a lot of help. We just build the carcass, and then we give the help to the people to finish the house, like on a pay-as-you-go basis. They can buy materials incrementally. They can finish the house incrementally with our help. So we just cut the cost by allowing people to build a house on their own, just like IKEA is doing. So this was the innovation we could find, because it was very difficult to change the type of materials or to have funding for people. So the down payment is low. It's just to pay the carcass of the house, and then you can go incrementally over 4 years, 5 years, according to your budget and how you can find the money. This was the main thing that we worked on, to allow people to do self-building, which is a kind of social and economic way of living in Africa. People enter the house and then finish the house incrementally. So we just wanted to help them to do that in a very normative way, and adding also the sustainable part in the house, because we knew that they would need it in the future.
Great, thank you so much. I know we've only got a few minutes left. I can't believe how fast this session has gone. I've got one question that I'd like to ask each of you before we wrap up. And Ghislaine, can I ask you to mute yourself? Great. The beeping is still there a little bit. So this is the question. We know that, like, just about around the whole world, everyone has been impacted by COVID. So the question that I'd like to ask each of you is, what would you have done differently if you had known how COVID was going to impact your country? Or what is something that you have introduced now as a result of COVID impacting your work? And I'm going to start with Ati, and then come to Mavis, then Stella, and then Ghislaine. So Ati.
Thank you, Zoe. So for what, I think I'll start with what we've done. Schools shut down very early in March in Ethiopia. So since then, we've moved into a hybrid virtual model that was providing a combination of what I told you earlier, phone calls, printed material, and providing schedule for children to watch television. That's done by the government, education, television, or radio. And this is really to provide guidance. We really believe that education is very important, but also the emotional support that children get from school is also very important. And so the coaching kind of relationship children have with their teachers. So we try to really keep that going. From the economic development work of our side, if we knew this was coming, we probably would have pushed further on mobile money. I think it's very new in Ethiopia, but we're still a very cash-based economy, and that has its own challenges when it comes to COVID, even in terms of infections and transmission. So we would have done a little bit more in really pushing in the direction of using that as productive.
Thank you. It seems like mobile money is one of those things that each of you has talked about.
Yes.
Mavis, any thoughts from you? What would you have done differently, or what are you doing differently?
Thank you, Zoe. I think one of the things that COVID really exposed, especially on our side, is it has been the lack of digital knowledge, and we've had to quickly adapt and move with the times, and sort of move most of our operation into one digital space. In terms of having to reach the farmers through information dissemination, such as where before you would previously physically have to go there, information could be disseminated through the use of either smartphones, or for most of our farmers, a USSD code. And for me, I feel had we known, those are some of the things that we would have really introduced prior to COVID, as well as the education itself. I feel we should have been disseminating. We shouldn't have had to wait for COVID to actually introduce some of the platforms that we've had to introduce. And also the markets themselves, we in Africa, we have the youngest, population. We have a lot of smartphones in the continent, and I believe that we could have had access to digital markets a while back. It didn't have to take COVID for young people to actually start creating market platforms where farmers can bring in their produce, and also as a business ourselves, we've also had to pretty much diversify into other sectors such as the health sector, through channeling our honey towards, medicinal purposes. And, those are some of the changes or things that we've had to adapt due to COVID.
Great. Thank you very much, Mavis. Stella.
Yes. So one of the things that we had to really think about very quickly was in terms of access to markets. Now, we have been predominantly selling to informal settlements. So we have the households, we have the informal schools, which are within the informal settlements. We have a lot of street food vendors. And we also, the other market that we were really supplying big time was the hotel industry in the camps and lodges. And therefore, with the global shutdown in terms of transportation, then one market was completely wiped off. That's the hotel industry. And therefore, we had very quickly to think about how to access an alternative market, which was now to reach the middle class market. So as much as the middle class market has a mix of energy in terms of they have access to electricity, to LPG gas for cooking, and occasionally they use the charcoal for cooking also. So we had to find ways and means to accelerate access to the middle class market, because charcoal is one of the products that they actually use for cooking, though not 100%. So finding methods of reaching that market to be able to cover up for the loss of market. And I think just as has been mentioned before, capitalizing on the digital space. We were more focused on manufacturing and just selling directly to the informal settlements. But right now, and then a lot of the times when we are training our sales agents, it was more of one-on-one selling method. So by starting to think about the learning space on the digital learning space, it means a lot of our content now has to be moved into the digital space for them to be able to learn on what the content or the requirements are for them to be recruited as our sales agents, which will include the life skills, entrepreneurship skills, and also we include a lot of the sexual reproductive health skills, because there are a lot of young people that we are recruiting into the sales system. And then also the way in which you are reaching the clients. You had not really capitalized on the online marketing and also text messaging for the clients, because it was very easy to reach our customers. But right now, we're seeing a lot of competition coming into the cooking space with different products. So there's need for consistent methods applying what is available through technology to be able to reach the customers very quickly and continuously reminding them of the products that you have at hand. And just as has been said before, we have a lot of smartphones being available within the space, but just how to harness the power of that smartphone is what has been lacking. So that is the space we are working hard to get into. And then the other system that we had to change was in line with the delivery. So a lot of our clients would come and pick the products from our different distribution points. But now with the aspect of social distancing, we would not want, we had to quickly change the system whereby the sales agents now deliver the products to where the customers are, instead of them coming to buy the charcoal briquettes from the shop. And also now looking for alternative partners such as the Uber motorbike system, the different people who are doing deliveries through use of motorbikes, which are quicker and cheaper. And a lot of partnership has been created through looking for alternative methods of delivering the products to the clients without having a lot of excuses, to make sure there's the client loyalty in access of the products. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. So we're going to wrap up with Ghislaine now. Just the same question So what would you have done differently given the impact of COVID, or what are you doing differently?
Very curious enough, we had a lot of calls after COVID just released a little bit, because people just wanted to improve their house and the way they live. And during that time, we just, everyone talked about digitalization, and we were in construction, so it's not very easy. It's not like you're going to go out there and sell a house on the internet. It's not so easy. So we just thought, how could we do this DIY little more digital? And so we're coming up with an app, web app, where you can really literally design the home on the computer or on the phone. So we have broken the process solely in little parts, so that anyone can come and say, I want this wall, and I want this, and I want this, and just design the house on his own, like he's an architect or like he's an engineer, and then with a specified budget. So it's now we're just imagining that you will come in the shop and design the house in the shop. You will just have the impression that you have done everything on your own, whereas we would have been working on this very deeply before you arrived. So we just capitalize on that and work a lot on the application, a lot of on digital marketing, so people can come and connect on the app. So we will come with a new website app where people can connect, have their space, and really work on their house until they have the one they need, the one they dream of, and that they have designed on their own, really tailored to their budget and to the way they do. And we also increase the sustainable part of it, because our house were EDGE compliant. EDGE is a IFC norm for greenhouses in Africa, and we are one of the only developers to do EDGE compliant houses, and we have done that a little bit deeper, so people could really be in a house where they use less energy, where they have better comfort, where they pay less utility bills, and still they have an acceptable cost. So we really work on how we could improve the cost of the house and the comfort of people without just like increasing any other factors in the house. So using the digital part was it. So how could we, and we just leverage on that, and we industrialize the system a little bit more. So now with the app, we will have in a factory where we will build all these products, design and build a house, including
I'm not sure what happened with Ghislaine. I know we're actually at the end of our time. We've gone a little bit over, so I'm going to close the session now. I'd like to say thank you very much to the audience who's joined us today. Thank you for sharing your questions. Thank you very much to my colleague Pyle, who's been sharing the information about all of these incredible businesses in the chat box. And thank you to each of you, our wonderful speakers today. Thank you for the work that you're doing. It's incredibly important right now in your communities to keep everyone moving forward. And thank you so much for sort of sharing what you're doing in the SDGs, as so many people are trying to learn more, figure out how they embrace the SDGs in their businesses. So thank you so much for your time, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.